Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to another video. I know it's been a minute since we last sat and spoke, but I think it'll be worth the wait. So without further ado, sit back, relax, turn up the volume, and be prepared to be blown away with the most disgusting story ever. Today's story we're going to be taking a look at Countess Elizabeth Bathory de Sked. Born in 1560, she was a Hungarian noblewoman and a reputed serial killer of hundreds of young women in the 16th and 17th centuries. Stories of her sadism and brutality quickly became part of national folklore, her infamy earning her the nickname the Blood Countess or Countess Dracula. Here are a couple of facts about the Countess. Elizabeth came from the noble Protestant family Bathory, who owned land in the Kingdom of Hungary. Her father was Baron George VI Bathory, brother of the Voivode of Transylvania, Andrew Bonaventure Bathory. Yes, that is quite a mouthful. Her mother was Baroness Anne Bathory, daughter of another Voivode of Transylvania. She was also the niece of Stephen Bathory, the King of Poland, and the Grand Duke of Lithuania, and the Prince of Transylvania. She was born on a family estate in Bator, and spent her childhood at Esked Castle. As a child, Bathory suffered from multiple seizures that may have been caused by epilepsy. In 1575, Bathory married Ferenc Nadezhdy, the son of a baron and another member of the aristocracy. Approximately 4,500 guests were invited to the wedding. I would have hated to see the wedding bill for that one. Before marrying Nadezhdy, Bathory had given birth to a baby by a lower order man. Nadezhdy is said to have had the lover castrated and torn to pieces by dogs. The child was hidden from view. My gosh, can you really see where the story is going? The young couple lived in the Nadezhdy castles in Hungary at Sovar and Szczecin in present-day Slovakia. While Nadezhdy was away on his frequent trips, his wife ran the estates and took various lovers. As you do, I suppose. Nadezhdy died in 1604 after developing a debilitating pain in his legs, eventually becoming permanently disabled. The couple eventually had 4 children. After her husband's death, rumors of Bathory's cruelty began to surface. There had been earlier accounts of a peasant woman being murdered, but it was not until 1609 that the rumors that she had killed noblewomen attracted attention. In 1610, King Matthias assigned Gorgory Torzo, Count Palatine of Hungary, and coincidentally Bathory's cousin, to investigate such claims. Between 1610 and 1611, Torzo took depositions from people living in the area surrounding her estate, including the testimony of more than 300 witnesses and survivors. The stories of Bathory's murders were further verified by physical evidence of mutilated, dying, or dead victims at the time of her arrest. According to the testimonies, Bathory's initial targets were servant girls aged between 10 and 14, the daughters of local peasants. These victims had been lured to the estate by offers of work as maids or servants in the castle. 2 court officials claimed that they personally witnessed Bathory torture and kill young servant girls. Later, Bathory was said to have killed the daughters of the lesser gentry sent by their parents to learn courtly etiquette and social advancement. Go figure that. Some witnesses told Torzo of relatives who had died while at Bathory's gynaeceum. Abductions were said to have also taken place. In all, Bathory was accused of having killed between a couple of dozen and over 600 young women. Almost were all of them of noble birth and had been sent to the gynaeceum. Bathory was suspected of having committed many forms of torture on her victims. Survivors and witnesses reported victims experiencing severe beatings, burning or mutilation of hands, freezing or even starving to death. According to the Budapest City Archives, victims would be covered in honey and live ants, all burned with hot tongs and then placed in freezing water. Bathory was said to have stuck needles even into her victims' lips or body parts, stabbing them with scissors or biting off their breasts, faces and limbs. Yes, you heard right. This woman is one sick individual. If you thought that was weird, this is where it takes a dive off into the deep end. Bathory was said to have enjoyed drinking the blood of virgins, believing that it would preserve her beauty and youthfulness. She was also rumored to bathe in the blood of her young victims. The story goes that she developed this penchant after slapping a female servant in rage, and discovered her skin looked younger when the servant's blood had splashed on it. However, stories attesting to her vampiric tendencies were recorded years after her death, and are considered unreliable. Modern historians have claimed that these stories originated from the widespread disbelief that women were not capable of violence for its own sake. On the 30th of December 1609, Bathory and her servants were arrested under orders of Bath Turso. The servants were put on trial in 1611, and 3 were executed for being Bathory's accomplices. Bathory herself was never tried, despite King Mateo's wishes. Turso convinced the king that such an act would damage the nobility. A trial and execution would have caused a public scandal, and led to the disgrace of a prominent and influential family that ruled Transylvania. And so, despite the overwhelming evidence and testimony against her, Bathory was saved from execution. She was imprisoned within the castle of Secchi in Upper Hungary, now known as Slovakia. Bathory would stay in the castle until her death in 1614 at the age of 54. She was initially buried in the castle church. However, an uproar among local villagers meant her body was moved to her birth home in Exeter. According to the Guinness World Records, Bathory is the most prolific female murderer and the most prolific murderer of the Western world. This is despite the precise number of her victims remain unknown and debated. Upon collecting testimony from 300 witnesses, Turso determined that Bathory had tortured and killed more than 600 victims. The highest number cited was 650. However, this number came from a claim by a servant girl that Bathory's court official had seen the figure in one of her private books. The book never came to light. Bathory's victims were said to have been hidden by a variety of places, but the most common method was to have the body secretly buried in church graveyards at night. Since her death, Bathory has become a prominent figure in folklore, literature, and music, often compared to Vlad the Impaler. The two were separated by more than a century, but had a common reputation for cruelty, brutality, and bloodthirstiness across Eastern Europe. 1817 saw the publishing of witness accounts for the first time, showing that the stories of Bathory's blood drinking or bathing were legend rather than fact. Her bloodthirsty reputation coincided with the vampire scares that haunted Europe in the early 18th century. It was said that in writing his 1970 book Dracula, the novelist Bram Stoker was inspired by the legends of both Bathory and Vlad the Impaler. Several historians have argued that far from being a cruel and barbaric killer, Bathory was in fact merely a victim of a conspiracy. The Hungarian professor Laszlo Nagy claimed that the accusations and proceedings against Bathory were politically motivated due to her extensive wealth and ownership of large lands in Hungary. It is possible that Bathory's wealth and power made her a perceived threat to leaders of Hungary, whose political landscape was overrun with major rivalries at the time. Bathory appeared to have been supported by her nephew, Gabor Bathory, ruler of Transylvania, and a rival to Hungary. It was not uncommon to accuse a wealthy widow or murder of witchcraft or sexual misconduct to seize her lands. So there you have it, folks. That's the story of Elizabeth Bathory. Some people claim that the stories aren't true and it was all just a political smokescreen, but surely with that a number of people that have been murdered or tortured, there's got to be some truth to it, and I think it's absolutely crazily disgusting what she got up to. She makes the likes of Daisy DeMalka look like a saint. So what is your views on this? Do you think it was just a massive conspiracy to try and throw off her name and try and seize her lands? Or do you think she was secretly a vampire trying to take the youth away from the servants and just drink their blood and bathe in their blood? Either way, it was a pretty disgusting story. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you guys are keeping well, and don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and share button. Take care, ciao.